in a culture that has vanished. This is Machu Picchu in the high Andes, 8,000 feet up in South America. It was built by the Incas at the height of their empire, round about 1500 AD or a little earlier, when the planning of a city was their greatest achievement. When the Spaniards conquered and plundered Peru in 1532, they somehow overlooked Machu Picchu and its sister cities. After that, it was forgotten for 400 years, until one winter's day in 1911, Hiram Bingham of Yale stumbled on it. By then, it had been abandoned for centuries and was picked bare as a bone. But in that skeleton of the city lies the structure of every city civilization in every age, everywhere in the world. A city must live on a base, a hinterland of a rich agricultural surplus. And the visible base for the Inca civilization was the cultivation of terraces. Of course, now the bare terraces grow nothing but grass. But once the potato was cultivated here. It's the native product of Peru. Maize, which was long native and had come from the north. And since this was a ceremonial city of some kind, when the Inca came to visit, no doubt there were grown for him tropical luxuries of this climate, like the coca, which is an intoxicating herb that only the Inca aristocracy was allowed to chew. At the heart of the terrace culture is the system of irrigation. This is what the pre-Inca Empire and the Inca Empire made. It runs through these terraces, through canals and aqueducts, through the great ravines, down into the desert towards the Pacific, and makes it flower. Exactly as in the Fertile Crescent, it's the control of the water. And so here in Peru, the Inca civilization was built on the control of irrigation. A large system of irrigation extending over an empire requires a strong central authority. It was so in Mesopotamia, it was so in Egypt, it was so in the empire of the Incas. And that means that this city, and all the cities here, rested on an invisible base of communication. The roads, the bridges in a wild country like this, the messages. They came here, they went out of here. They are the three links by which every city is held to every other, and which we suddenly realize are different in this city. Roads, bridges, messages. Yet on the roads, there were no wheels. Under the bridges, there were no arches. The messages were not in writing. The culture of the Incas had not made these inventions by the year 1500 AD. That's because civilization in America started several thousand years late and was conquered before it had time to make all the inventions of the old world. It was a remarkably tight social structure. Everyone had a place, Everyone was provided for, and everyone, peasant, craftsman, soldier, worked for one man, the supreme Inca. The artisans who lovingly carved this stone to represent the symbol of the link between the sun and its god and king, the Inca, worked for the Inca. So, of course, it was an extraordinary, brutal empire. In less than 100 years, from 1438 onwards, the Incas had conquered 3,000 miles of coastline, almost everything between the Andes and the Pacific. And yet, in 1532, a Spanish adventurer, almost illiterate, Francisco Pizarro, rode into Peru with no more than 62 terrible horses and 106 foot soldiers. And overnight, he conquered the great empire. How? By cutting the top of the pyramid, by capturing the Inca. And from that moment, the empire sagged, and the cities, the beautiful cities, lay bare for the gold plunderer and the vultures. But of course, a city is more than a central authority. A city is people. A city is alive. What is a city? It is a community which lives on a base of agriculture, so much richer than the village that it can afford to sustain every kind of craftsman and make him a specialist for a lifetime. The specialists are gone. Their work has been destroyed. The men who made the city, the goldsmith, the coppersmith, the weaver, the potter, their work has been robbed. The woven fabric has decayed. The bronze has perished. The gold has been stolen. All that remains is the work of the mason, the beautiful craftsmanship of the men who made this city, not the Incas, but the craftsmen. But, of course, if you work for an Inca, if you work for one man, his tastes rule you, and you make no invention. These men still worked to the end of the empire with the beam. They never invented the arch. Here is a measure of the time lag between the New World and the Old, because this is exactly the point which the Greeks had reached 2,000 years earlier, and at which they also stopped. This is Paestum in southern Italy, a Greek colony whose temples are older than the Parthenon. They date from about 500 BC. Paestum is contemporary with the beginning of Greek mathematics. Pythagoras taught in exile in another Greek colony not far from here. Like the mathematics of Peru 2,000 years later, the Greek temples were bounded by the straight edge and the set square. The Greeks did not invent the arch either, and therefore their temples are crowded avenues of pillars. They seem open when we see them as ruins, but in fact they are monuments without spaces.